And so we thought we would put together a panel of two founders from actually like kind of different eras of building. Matt, if you want to join me, is kind of from the recent years and has an amazing story about seedstrapping his business. And Saif is an experienced founder who actually took his company the whole way from fundraising to exit. But before the seed strapping trend came about, he was ahead of his time and doing that. So please welcome Saif and Matt. You got that? Good. So first I'm going to get you guys to just quickly walk us through who you are and we'll go from there and what you built and maybe let's start there. What you're Oh, is it on now? Good.
Test. We're good.
I think so.
Cool. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Matt. I'm one of the co-founders of Clover Labs. We're a seed-strapped company. As I kind of mentioned before, I'm pretty young. I'm 23, just turned 23 2 weeks ago. I was lucky pretty early in my career. I sold my first company when I was 19 for $500,000. My second company when I was 21 to private equity. And then both those companies were fully bootstrapped. And this time I was like, hey, let's kind of take a bigger swing. Raised a super small round of financing, $500K at a $10 million valuation. And we've been growing incredibly quickly. I'm happy to kind of share some stats later on. And yeah, really excited to be able to share some insights.
All right. Hey, everyone. My name's Saif. I ran a company called Keyhole, which is a social media listening product. Back when social media was still new and cool, because we launched this company like 15 years ago and took seed funding. And since then, we've been customer funded and growing until we exited last fall to an adjacent company and a strategic buyer.
So tell us a little bit, Saif, we'll start with you about your funding journey. So you touched on it a little bit, but let's double click. So you started the business, and when did you raise your first capital?
Yeah, so we started it in 2009. And back then it feels so long ago because back then seeds funding was still calculated in the hundreds of thousands, and we had at the time raised $350,000. Even Y Combinator at the time was giving like $15,000 checks, right? And so the scale was completely different back then. And that's how much we raised. And we went through a local incubator at the time. Luckily, there were founders of that incubator who had kind of a risk appetite because I think back then, I mean now, but certainly back then, there wasn't a lot of risk appetite around for early stage until you had some validation. And so this incubator called Extreme Venture Partners was launched, and they were giving out some similar seed funding to Y Combinator which was like, hey, come in, do an early seed, take a little bit of money, validate what you need to do, and then we may fund you after that. And so that's how we ended up getting our first round.
And this ended up being your last round. And actually, you went on to actually do the most baller move ever, which is buy back your investors.
Yeah, look, that was our last round. So we raised in 2009. It was $365K, I think it was, the exact number was. And it took us, like every startup, we pivoted until we figured something out. And when we reached product market fit, because it was B2B and revenue generating, we had cash coming in. And when we became profitable, we realized pretty early that this is not going to be, I think a theme is going to be like, you got to be honest about yourself, about what your company is and what your business is. And so we were honest with ourselves and said, this is not going to be something that needs $100 million to turn into $1 billion IPO. This is this is a very good business, but it's not a VC business. And so what happens to the path after that? So after we raised our seed funding and we turned profitable, we were generating cash and putting cash in the bank every single month, which is a very nice feeling. And we got to a point where we had conversations with our investors to say, look, this is not going to turn out to something that is going to be return your fund. It's going to be a long play for us. The best thing for all of us is if we can just buy you guys back out. And so you guys get money, we get our independence, and we can run this company the way we want. And it made sense to them, made sense to us. And it was about 5 years after founding, because it's been forever, it was about 2015, 2013 that we actually bought out our investors after that.
Amazing. And Matthew, you raised $500K at a $10 million valuation, and then you hit $1 million ARR in 62 days. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
So, what's the special sauce?
So when we raised back we started our fundraising around Christmas time, which is the worst time to fundraise. But I didn't know that because I've never raised a round before. And so we kind of reached things around January. Kick things around January again. At the time, we only wanted to raise and dilute the company 5% maximum. And we did a 10 mil USD valuation. We had 2 VCs kind of go into the round, and the rest of the round is mostly filled by angels. And the bet was kind of very interesting. It was actually very difficult to raise for us, for like the larger institutional companies, because we were acting kind of like a studio. The bet that we had was not that we can build a $1 billion one company. The bet is that we have this really good internal growth engine, which obviously we were able to hit $1 million a year in 62 days because of this engine and the team. And so the bet is like this engine can be able to distribute and get tons of people on any one of our products. And so we built it as more of a studio type model, which is very unique. And a lot of investors said no. But the 2 investors that did say yes, all I really did is I sent over a Notion link. I'm like, here's the plan. It's kind of crazy. I don't know if it's going to work out, but I do know if it does work out, it'll work out very well. And so we got 2 VC checks and then a bunch of angels kind of filling up the round. And it's been growing pretty quickly. And again, like $1 million a year. When we chatted, it's $1 million a year, or just about to hit about 2. That's gonna be around like 80 days or so. So yeah, I'm gonna talk more about the product and stuff, but it's been really fun.
It's awesome. So you touched on the growth engine, and I just want to make sure that we like unpack that. So
Right.
So what does that mean, the growth engine?
So yeah, so I guess high level on the companies, we have one company right now. So the first one that hit $1 million a year. We found a way to organically hack Reddit to be able to reach the top of Google on any key term. And on top of that, organically mention your product across any one of the organic postings. And our second product, which will hit $1 million a year very, very soon, which is why we're going to hit 2. It's called Echoes. It's a way to do the same thing on TikTok and Instagram. So you can run hundreds of TikTok and Instagram accounts at scale. This allows you to post hundreds of times a day. And because of that, you only pay per view, which essentially means that if you get 2 million views on autopilot, our CPM cost is half the cost of Facebook ads. So we found a way to do Facebook, but purely organic. We've done it firstly on Reddit, and now we're going to be doing it on TikTok and Instagram as our second product. The engine itself is that we use our own products to be able to grow our own internal tools, which is kind of a cool cycle. And the second part of that is we do a lot of outbound. So like a lot of cold emails, a lot of like LinkedIn connections, and a lot of referrals. And so most of the business has been built off of that. And we just do a lot of volume. I think a lot of founders, I talked to a lot of founders and they're like, hey, I sent 100 emails. I only had 1 call from it. I'm like, we send 10,000 a day. Like 10,000 a day. We do 2,000 like Twitter messages, and we do 1,000 LinkedIn connections per day. And most people is like, that's absolutely crazy. But it's also like, what's kind of crazy is like you do enough volume that makes it impossible to lose. And we wanted to do that across every one of our companies. And what's really cool is that we have this internal like index that we kind of call rev ratio. And rev ratio is kind of our way to determine product market fit across any one of our products. And so the best way to determine product market fit is that there's a couple metrics. If you send the same amount of volume, let's say 10,000 emails a day, you end up getting, let's say, 2 or 4% reply rate. If the same offer that works, you send another 10,000 emails and the reply rate is better, that means the offer is better, which means the market wants it more. And so our whole goal is how do we send enough volume that then allows us to determine what products make the most sense and then what offers make the most sense for those products. And then once you have a good offering and product, then you just scale and you 10x. So obviously over a month, we're sending over close to, I think across all the companies, we'll be sending close to 1 million emails per month.
Every time I talk to this guy, his number goes up. And
Yeah.
I think that's a trend. And I think that's something that that you're tracking. You said we a few times, and I wanted to understand the size of this magical team.
Yeah, so right now we're full team, 14 people full time. Again, back in January, it was just me and my co-founder, just 2 of us. We made to scale the team pretty quickly. Most of it's engineers, and then I'd say about like 25% is go-to-market people. Mostly because like a lot of these systems are fully automated, and a lot of the biggest moat has just been product.
That's awesome. Well done. Saif, I'm going to turn back to you. And one of the big topics of our conversations when we've chatted has been like, should I take VC money or should I not? And ultimately you took it and then, decided not to take more. So maybe you could tell us, when is it a good time to take VC and when is it not?
Yeah, so I know earlier we were talking about what the different stages are, right? So what is the purpose of pre-seed and seed? The purpose of pre-seed and seed is really to figure out what the heck your product is going to be and what the heck your business might be, potentially product market fit. And once you get to that stage is really when you can figure out, are we a VC business or not? If you find product market fit, your growth rate is really good. I mean, we were growing at, at times like 40 to 80% a year. For a normal business, that's pretty phenomenal. For a VC business, some might look at you and say, yeah, it's actually not going to return our fund until you kind of grow faster, right? And so I think you use that seed time, your pre-seed and seed time, if we're talking about seed strapping. Some might be able to do it with bootstrapping, given the AI tools today. Is you figure out what is my product, what is my business. VC is not all bad or all good, just like bootstrapping is not all bad or all good. There's some great times to take VC funding. If you're going to be a phenomenal trajectory and you need that funding to grow 10x, 100x, 1000x, take it. If it's a winner take all market and you're either going to be everything or nothing, take it. But if your business is not fundamentally a VC business, it actually takes away options from you, right? Because what happens is that once you take VC funding, the only way VC math works is, you'll see tons of threads on it. It's basically either you're a 10x or you're 0. So if your business goes to 1x, 2x, or 1x would be flat, but 2x, 3x, 4x, it might be a life-changing outcome for you if you were to be able to pull the trigger on an exit there. But for a VC, it might not move the needle and might not be the path that makes sense for them to give you, kind of empower you to go down, right? And so those singles and doubles change lives, and Seedstrapping allows for that. So a lot of the buzz out there is always about take VC, go to home run, and all the companies we hear about, of course, are like the big ones, right? Because there's selection bias there. But there's actually phenomenal businesses that have changed your lives and my lives, can change your life and my life if we found it and run it as a business, and actually do get singles and doubles out of it. Like we were a business that was at multi-million dollars revenue and multi-million dollars profit at some points, right? And got a phenomenal life-changing outcome out of it for us and our family. And sometimes that's the right model. It comes down to who you are and what your business is and what your product is. So you just have to be honest with yourself.
I want to double click on the acquisition. So like when you were building this, were you always building it with the mindset of being acquired? And then when did you find the right partner? How did that happen? And now how is the integration going?
Yeah, maybe this is the Canadian in us, but we didn't go very deep in the J curve, right? So we were always biasing towards how do we get to revenue and profitability, which might not be the right thing to think about. If you're going for the Grand Slam, which in that case might be growth rate, right? And sometimes you got to take a deeper loss in the short term to get there. For us, we didn't have a path when we started. We said, let's figure out we see the market. I mean, we launched at a time when Instagram didn't exist, or Facebook was just starting to allow companies to have, company pages with brand names, right? And so we were that early. We knew there was a curve there. We just didn't know what that kind of ride was going to look like. And so we took funding to figure that out. And so once we figured that out and we figured out what our business is going to be and what our product is going to be, then we said, this is probably the right path for us versus this. Because we get inbound all the time because some of our metrics are phenomenal. And so we get inbound from VCs, right? But after some kind of honest conversations, it actually made more sense for us to stay profitable, grow revenue and profits, as opposed to kind of go all in with a loss to try and get the revenues to grow faster. So the acquisition. So the acquisition kind of came about through a partnership. There was a lot of cultural fit. So we got acquired by a company called Muckrack. Reminder, we're a social media listening company. They're a media PR tool that does media monitoring and other things. And so if you wanted to reach out to the right person at BetaKit or CNN or whoever, that's what kind of Muckrack allows you to do. So there's a lot of adjacencies. the way it came about is they happened to be a bootstrap company that, like, their first round was 9 figures because they bootstrapped it, ran it profitably for so long, and essentially took growth equity, right? And there was a lot of culture fit. Their customers were looking for our product. So first we started with partnership reselling our product, and then a deeper integration just made a ton of sense. Because we ran at a profit and cash flowing, we had tons of options. I mean, when financial buyers come along, we were saying no to them all because, like, selling from 3 to 5 times multiple of EBITDA didn't make sense to us. But when our strategic comes along, it made more sense to us. So it just gives you a ton of options when you're running at a profit, right?
That's awesome. So Matthew, you got to $1 million really quick. You're getting to $2 million very quick. Do you think you could get to 10 million very quick?
I think there will be a problem around team. I think you look at all these like really big Seedstrap companies. Most of them are B2C companies, which means like customer support is like a lot less. For our end, we are still scaling really quickly, but now the bottlenecks has just been about account managers per company that we onboard. We have 2 public companies that use us, and so a lot of like making sure that you can sell someone very quickly, but then the real value is how do you have the LTV per customer to last as long as possible. And so $1 million a year is really cool. But what's also really cool is $1 million a year for 10 years, and doing that consistently. And so that's really the next bottleneck we're trying to solve. And so trying to build out the entire customer support team just so the customers can stay on as long as possible. And we have a huge index on product and brand. And I think that allows us to get the best customers. But then the problem is, like, how long can they stay? So that's like the next bottleneck we're trying to solve. Because ideally, you don't want churn to be too high.
One of your growth strategies is actually acquisitions. So you just acquired a design agency. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I think the two big moats in the future will be really about brand. And a large part of brand is how people perceive your company. And so one of the first big acquisitions that we did, this is back in February, so we acquired a design agency. And the whole purpose of that is that they did our entire site, our logo, and I thought they were absolutely brilliant. And I also wanted to keep them to myself. And so we bought out their entire area, people. We're just around 6 people full time. We ended up taking around 3 of the 6 people. And we kind of said no to all the clients that were there because we weren't building a design agency. I just wanted to build the best designers. And typically the best designers are ones that have so many different reps in multiple different companies that they're able to know what good design looks like. And so if you look at any one of my companies that I've ever built, a large part of all the things we have built is like really good websites, really high converting companies, and products that look really, really nice. And so a large part of that allows the sales process to look very, very simple, and allows our conversion rates to be a lot higher when we're selling to people. So that's been a huge focus, and that was like our first big acquisition that we did to kind of start off the company.
I love that. Can a volunteer tell the people in the back to shh? Thank you. There is a really cool lounge downstairs. If you want to talk, you could go there. Okay. Awesome. All right. So we're going to wrap up, and I'm going to put the Slido so you guys can get ready to answer your questions. But I'm going to ask both of you a question. If you were to leave this room of founders with some tips, 1 tip each on, what they should be thinking about when it comes to their funding journey, what would you tell them?
I think the biggest thing for funding is understanding unit economics. Like, we took a $500,000 round. Now we have a company that's doing over $1 million a year. And it's only because the understanding of putting $1 in and getting $2 back and being able to do that very repeatedly. And so my first 2 companies were fully bootstrapped. So I got to learn it on my own dime. And by the time I raised my own first round of funding, I knew I could do it again, and I knew I could make it profitable. And so a large part of funding is thinking about how to make those unit economics work. And that also leads into deciding how much funding to raise to begin with. And so in our case, we only need to do $500,000, and we'll probably just end up raising debt in the future, but not like venture debt, it's like proper like government debt. And I think that's kind of how we're kind of approaching things. The other thing I would say is that I would also very much over-index on angels. And like, if you can get VCs, I think an angel is a very good way to get a bunch of kickstart. And the whole goal, especially on the pre-seed round, is just to hit product market fit or have some semblance of product market fit. And because the game has never been easier, like, it's very easy to build products, it's very easy for people to know about your stuff, and it's never ever been easier in the history of the world to be able to build cool stuff and have people know about it. You don't really need that much crazy capital to be able to do that. And so even like a $100K angel round is a huge kickstart to be able to get something running and off the ground.
Yeah, I would just say, like, especially at the pre-seed seed round, bias towards people who are going to believe in you, right? Because at the pre-seed seed, there's not a lot of people, like a lot of people are not out there because they are looking at your numbers and they're like, this thing's a home run. I don't know this person, but I'm going to put in the money because the return is going to be fantastic. They're doing it because for two reasons. Either they believe in you, and a smaller reason is they really want to feel good and look good to other people if it wins, right? And so stick to, angels are the right way to go if it's super early stage. Although there are like super supportive pre-seeds too, right? There's some in this room who will back you because they, after getting to know you, will believe in you and say, you know what, I didn't know Matt before I started meeting him, but like, look how passionate he is. He's done it. So I'm willing to kind of vouch for that, right? So at the early stage, it's really about you personally. Sometimes it's because they know you. Sometimes it's because they see really good founder market fit. I think founder market fit is underplayed. I think that's a real big reason on why some founders win and why some founders get backed. And so just kind of think about what your story is going to be as you go up for the early stages. Because later stages, it becomes all about the numbers.
Awesome, Alex. You got some questions?
Anyone want to ask a question before they put on Slido? Or I'll just go to Slido.
Go to Slido.
One right here.
Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for putting this together. It's made so much insights to learn from. My quick question is, as a new founder where you don't really have a network and you're reaching out to angels and essentially you're nobody, how do you get the attention of angels to even open up your deck and have that conversation with you?
Send them a demo. Send them a demo of your product. Have them use it. Show that there's like actual traction.
The other I would say is like, oh, do you want it? The other thing I would say is like, there's probably a way to get in front of people and get attention in different ways, right? So what we did is we did a lot of like PR hacking and newsjacking. So when our first product was called Assetize, we used to be a marketplace where people could buy and sell usernames, Twitter usernames. Of course, yes, cease and desist letters and all that, and we're proud of all that. As a founder, like you're super proud when $1 billion company sends you cease and desists. It should be up on your fridge. But TechRaj wrote about us and said, this is getting ridiculous. Companies are out there starting to sell and buy stuff, right? And that happened to be how we opened the door to get conversations, because actually risk-taking VCs don't mind that, right? And then we kind of walked into different rooms and introduced ourselves that way. And so, there really are different ways to get in front of, like, whether it's newsjacking, media, now social media, right? You're going to have to just hack your way in.
Cool. Next question from Slido is, are you two angel investors yourselves?
I don't know, how much is Matt raising? No. We are. Yeah, so I am. I've invested in...
Well,
I am. I've done a few angel investments. 90% turn into nothing, and one wins, and you feel good about that. But it's almost always been somebody who is a friend, and you're just kind of backing them. And the other thing is, like, when you're raising money, you're always worried that you don't want to lose other people's money, right? Like, that's a fundamental thing you want to lose inside. I'll tell you, from an angel perspective or investment perspective, the investor kind of assumes you're going to lose money. So people actually, when you're going out for fundraising, that's another thing that people get overly concerned about, unless it's like family and there's the only thing they're writing. But if they're actually angels and VCs and others, they're used to that high risk and low chance of return. And so don't let that be a stopper for you. But yeah, in my case, I've written a bunch of angel checks, and most have been zero, and that's okay. Just you're writing it for friends anyway, right? So.
Okay. I'm actually not an angel investor, but happy to help anyone with like product or go-to-market stuff.
Well, that leads to the next question. Have you had advisors for go-to-market? How did you figure that out by yourself, for either of you?
Yeah. So I think depends on what type of industry you're in. So if you're B2C, it's like content. So you just do a lot of volume. Like typically we do that obviously with our own content, our own like software. But Instagram, TikTok, it's not that hard to get a million views anymore. The hard thing is like doing that very repeatedly. And so you do more shots at bet, and our software allows you to do literally hundreds of shots at bet a day. So then that's one aspect for B2C products, like more consumer companies. If it's a B2B, there's a couple ways to do it. The best one that we've worked out the best is just been cold outbound. And you can do cold outbound at Play. Again, we just do emails. We do like LinkedIn connections. You can also do inbounds. You see a lot of founder content kind of being let in. And then the last real aspect is just like paid acquisition. So you have like those type of three, like inbound, which is like founder content. You have outbound, which is like cold outbound. And then you have paid acquisition, which is like Meta ads, TikTok ads, Twitter ads. Ideally, to get to $1 million a year, you need to do one product, one channel being like one of those three aspects. And after that, you can then add new products, add new channels. Typically, you just need to get good at one. The easiest one to get good at is probably just founder inbound. The problem with founder inbound is that you end up getting capped. You can't do hundreds of posts a day, so the volume becomes a problem. And then for cold outbound, there really isn't a volume problem. There's an offer problem. So like, how good is your product? How good do people actually want your product? And then with paid acquisition, is like more difficult at scale. Typically, the hardest part of paid acquisition is running more campaigns. So you want to run tons of different creatives, which again goes back to volume. So having lots of different shots at net, and ideally one campaign that you run will allow you to outperform and be able to make some ROAS on your company.